back to our afternoon session. Next up on our agenda is a budget workshop for salaries and benefits. Brian or Arnie, would you guys open the door, please? Thank you. Assuming, is Gabby coming in?
She is, Madam Chairman. Commissioners, we do have on the agenda first the projected revenue. I feel that that is going to take a little bit of time. The commissioners did receive two spreadsheets from the clerk's office on Thursday regarding recommendations from HR Director Mike Savoy. Commissioners, what is not included in that is the new positions that have been requested have not been conformed or entered into the actual worksheet. There was a separate tab that listed out the recommended, or excuse me, the proposed positions.
You know if Mike's coming in?
I thought that he was.
Reach out to him really quick. So on the 2026 change in compensation recommendation, there's three tabs: monthly, report template, master template. Is that what you're looking at?
No, I'm looking at the proposed wage increases. I can pull it up.
Sherry, how do I get this bigger?
Double click on the email itself. Oh, you're just in the reading page. So double click on the email itself. On the list. There you go.
Oh.
Now it'll be at the bottom. Now you can click
there it
first
is.
Excel spreadsheet.
Yep, got it.
Commissioners, this is where it does get a little bit difficult, right? Because we are, as of right now, the Human Resource Director has composed a list of the requested new positions to bring on. And I'd like the commissioners to take a close look at this and maybe just deliberate, have some conversation regarding these requested positions in order for us to get a better account of what you would like to see in the actual budget.
Okay, so first up, payroll specialist. We've already hired
So
that
that's-
person. That one has to be already.
That's an automatic.
Yeah, that one has to be. Appraisers being set by the state. So anytime we get beyond a certain number of parcels, then the state steps in and says you need another appraiser. So we really can't fight that one.
I didn't know that.
Building inspector, Annette is saying that she needs that with the change in the impact area. So if we're truly going to change the impact area, then we need to probably leave that one in. Let's discuss the forestry and the recreation technician. I think that Mara's may be a full-time position. The rec, Dave's position would be part-time. I think just for summer. Let's put those aside for a second. The sheriff's not here, but I think some of these, the sergeant, the communication deputy, and communication lead, payroll deputy, 6 of these are his. Doesn't he have open positions now? Why are we putting new positions in when he already has open positions that he can't fill?
Sergeant position, if you remember a few months back, they took their corporal positions and sergeants.
Okay.
Had said that come October they would want deputy, one of their current deputy positions also be the sergeant position. So
Okay.
that's not a full new person, that's just
That's
higher
just an increase in
wage.
page. Okay.
And then the communications lead is the same thing, they wanna have a second communications lead. So it's not a new position, but an upgrade to that position. And then the same thing with the detention. The last one they want another job. It's not a brand new position. The 2 patrol deputies are brand new positions.
And then the
And they were with the intent of them being recreation. This was my understanding.
They would have 4 then? 4 recreation deputies?
That's right.
And it may only be one of them. One of their forms says patrol, and one says backcountry, so.
So there would be 3 recreation then.
That is what. Yes, if you.
So,
Is that the water deputies?
around motorcycles and backcountry,
Oh, okay.
snowmobiles in the wintertime.
Yep, yep.
So, in my opinion, just off the top, I think we wait on the communication deputy. That's not necessary right now. I think that that's a nice thing to have, but if we're looking at what we really need to function as a county right now, that one would be one I would hold on. I think the upgrades to the other positions might be okay, those are small dollar amounts when you look at it. So he would have the system built the way he wants it, if you will. So that would allow him to reposition some people within that. He needs to show me the numbers on patrol deputies. I know that rec has had a problem with only 2 on. They're filling it from the payroll or the patrol side all the time. So maybe we give him 1 and then let him decide for this year whether he needs it on the road or if he needs it in the backcountry. I'll let them share that.
I think when you look at, we had the presentation by Search and Rescue, and there were how many backcountry that they went on? 14. And you look on the number of crashes on the road. The road is by far, I think, should be our priority. Several fatals in the last couple months.
Agreed?
The detention corporal, why is,
That's an upgrade to the current position. So take them from a sergeant to a corporal, right?
From a deputy to.
I thought they did away with corporal.
In the,
Well-
on patrol they did.
On
The jail
patrol.
still has corporals. The jail has
I see.
free.
Jail still hold on to that.
And I guess the thing is, just to preface the whole deal, we don't have the numbers yet on what our appraisals are. I'm assuming after initial conversations with Dee Dee that our numbers are still going up. It looks like we will have values that we won't be having to go backwards on a budget. But the new
values
construction,
don't have anything to do with,
I'm looking at new construction.
new construction's about 200 and, yeah, it's gonna allow an additional 230,000 that the county can.
So if you take 3% of our last year's budget plus 230,000, we don't come close to meeting this need and giving our employees 3%.
Madam Chairman, that's a comment that I was gonna, yes, it's gonna be difficult. So these are really things that elected officials and department heads need to take in consideration when they're asking for new positions. Because this really impacts the increases that the commissioners can give to existing employees. Or there's, to be able to do it all is really going to be eating into the remaining cash that we have, which is going to dwindle that for potential emergencies that the county has in the future, right? And that's kind of what the remaining cash is there for to budget for large projects. So if the commissioners were inclined to do everything that's being presented, yes, there is gonna be an impact on the existing remaining cash that the county has to fund everything.
And a few years ago, we started taking PIL to backfill our budget.
And that be
And that's, so right now, we put, what, 400?
400,000. So there might be, sorry to interrupt you, Madam Chairman, but there might be a requirement that all of that money that we receive from PILT be budgeted for as projected revenue instead of setting up that aside to fund future capital projects.
So when I voted on the PIL to start using PIL to backfill our budget, I also stated that I was willing to use a certain percentage of that but that's the only money the county has to do other projects with.
It is.
We have zero ways to go out and buy property like we did, we're considering right now. We have no way to go in and, fix something that is broken without that pilt. And eventually, something's gonna need to happen on the north end of this building. We need that as a savings account as we move forward. So adding positions is critical to meet need, but, why I was asking Mike also is all these new positions, did we get, and I'll ask the two that are in here. Well, there he is. Mike, you can answer my question now. All the new positions, did you get a star sheet stating why these positions are critical?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Yes.
Okay. Could those be shared with the commissioners before next week, please?
Okay.
So I wanna know, what service level is going to improve by all of this, what their numbers are.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, what I would recommend is that we have the ability or the time to compile all this information, share with the commissioners, and revisit this on the 16th of July would be my recommendations at this point in time, specifically regarding salaries. Again, I know you're not making any decisions, but just to have all of the information before you to continue to have good deliberations on the recommendations by HR, the requested positions. That's just would be my opinion at this point in time.
So I'm thinking correctly, Doug, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the way I've always looked at it. 3% increase in the budget is basically what you'd get to give to your employees for a raise. And then new construction is what the new positions within the county would be, or special projects. And that's the way kind of I've always looked at it. The 3% budget increase, does that create a larger fund than what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
You're making sense, but then we also have to take into account the projected revenue that we have. Is there anywhere in the county that is going to be increasing in revenue? Say interest on investments, say the housing state
Fees go
entities,
up.
fees go up, things of that nature we have to take into consideration as well. Unfortunately, not all of the projected revenue is increasing. Some of the projected revenue is decreasing, specifically the sales tax surplus. We're being told again by the state to project lower than what we have regarding our sales tax surplus that we receive from the state. So,
Make sure and talk to your legislators about that one, because they want to go after another 0.5% decrease for taxes this year. And that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to hold all of our revenue sharing back so that they go back to a 5% income tax instead of 5.5% income tax.
unfortunately, the counties have to take that into consideration when we hear that from the state.
All right. And as far as annual raises, Mike, do you want to start this conversation yet? Would you like to talk to the commissioners about the amount of an annual raise you would like to start considering?
Yeah, commissioners, so this doesn't seem to be on.
You turned it down
There
before
we
you
go.
got here?
I think it's there.
We didn't want to
Yeah.
hear what you had to say.
Didn't want to hear what I had to say anyway. So, I took a look at the wages that we offer everybody here and kind of came up with a plan like we executed last year. I looked at all the salaries of everybody we have from high to low, top to bottom, and started by building in a 3% increase for everyone. Looked to see what that would do for pay raises for everybody. But then, of course, realized when you look at people at the very bottom of the scale, a 3% isn't a whole lot. I know this commission has tasked me in the past couple of years with trying to get our starting wages at the very bottom up as much as we can, but always being cognizant of compression and wanting to make sure that we're not squeezing our wages so close together that there's no daylight between them. Last year, if you'll remember, I came up with scheme, if you will, of increasing people's pay at the top by a certain percentage, but then at a certain amount below that, simply increasing everybody by a fixed dollar per hour. Last year it was $1.20 that we increased everybody at the bottom of the pay scale by a minimum of that amount. This year, the proposal that I'm putting together goes with a 3% increase or a $1 an hour increase in pay, whichever is greater. The effect that has is that everybody making at least $33.33 per hour or above would receive a 3% raise. Everybody below that threshold would receive $1 an hour of a raise. The overall cost to the county comes in at below 4%. It also allows us to move the bottom of our pay scale up by a modest 50 cents an hour. Right now, the lowest paid people we have in the county are making $17.50 an hour. This plan would allow us to bring that number up to $18 an hour, without compressing wages with any of our existing staff here. Obviously, this body may decide that that's more of a budget increase than we can afford. Of course, I'm prepared to go back and make adjustments if necessary. There are also, of course, some individual increases that need to happen for internal equity purposes. We are going to see that every year. This year, there's a number of them, but not many, a handful, a small amount.
So overall percentage of increase you're showing then is 3.94,
Correct.
what you just
And
told me.
it will be most likely less than that. We're going to experience resignations between now and the end of September, unexpected things like that happening. We will see salary savings from positions going vacant between now and then, but also next year we always see vacant positions not being filled that we get salary savings from.
Does have any questions at this point?
Thank you.
I mean, I had a lot of questions on the sheet that I got. Would you make sure we'll clean up some of those questions?
Is that to me?
Oh,
Yeah, Matt, did you send them to me?
I think I didn't actually. Now that I say that, I
Yeah, I
sent them
don't
to
think she
Doug
was-
and
yeah.
Mike. Sorry about that.
So again, commissioners, I'd like to revisit this on the 16th. Once we have the ability to clean up, for lack of better terms, and provide you with everything together, review it again on the 16th.
And I think we need to invite the elected officials that have new, or the electeds and the directors that have new positions for that conversation. And I would like to get those star sheets. I want to know how this improves the county's service. Because bottom line is, it's expensive and we don't, no idea where we're gonna be when we get done with final numbers, but, I did notice, and Annette, you might be able to inform us, but I noticed that building permits were off quite a large amount. What the other things were that I saw, but the proposed,
Building permits have not met our projection at this point in time. We're at 303,000.
did you send it, what was I looking at over the weekend that actually showed the income?
Yeah.
Was it on the same email or was it a separate email?
It was the same. Our building permits, right now, like I said, are 303,000. We projected 425,000. We have until September 30th. It's going to be close. I would rely on Annette to have a better gauge, but unfortunately, this is one that I was going to potentially recommend to the commissioners that we reduce this. You can see it was high in 23, 24. This year it's substantially lower than it has been.
It's just a real slow startup this year is why.
You are, okay.
But in all fairness, if commissioners don't mind, since Dan is here, we can do a budget workshop for the road department and come back to the projected revenue. If that's acceptable. Let me get that pulled up.
And you have no revenue, sorry. Close up shop. Our roads are perfect.
you to be
Our roads are perfect. Nobody complains about our roads at all.
So,
Just turn the lights off. When you said we had bumpy roads.
That you like to follow.
commissioners, what I'd like to review first, of course, is the projected revenue for the road department for fiscal year 2026. Right now, we're in our highway user gas tax, we've collected $2,310,000. We are still waiting for our fourth quarter payment. Unfortunately, with that fourth quarter payment, I don't know if we're gonna hit that 3.7. I'm hoping that we do with that additional money, but we're definitely not gonna collect $6 million like we did in 2024, again, unless the commissioners know something that we don't know. So what we're projecting for fiscal year 2026 in highway user gas tax is 3.7. Unfortunately, it's possible that we should reduce that, but I'd like, before we make any determination, I'd like to see what our fourth quarter payment is. We should have that within the next few days.
The strategic initiatives that we got last year were about, was it either 1.2 or 1.8? I can't remember, and that was one that we did not have to share. And that is, I've already heard that this next year in the legislature, they're gonna try and solidify that, so that does not change every year, that we have a stable and stagnant amount that we will know.
And that's that, excuse me for interrupting you, that's that fourth quarter payment, or that would be included in the fourth quarter payment?
Yes. That's the strategic initiative. That's the one that they actually, we can use for bonding or use for projects. So
I think we were forecasting a little over 5 for that fourth quarter. From last year-
500,000?
Yeah, 500,000. From last year, we got a big increase. So we're anticipating 5, but we don't know until we see the number. Have to adjust. Am I speaking?
Yes.
IAC
But
may-
that last, I mean, last year, that last payment was 1.5 million. Now, if we're gonna get anything more near that, that would be fantastic, but the concern that I have is that you're indicating that it's guaranteed,
Yes.
but until we see it come in,
Don't
I
want to
get
go
it.
there.
I get it. You are the ones that are supposed to be doing the detailed work. We get to be
and
the visionaries.
we wanna just trust but verify,
I believe that it will be that amount.
okay?
After being in the legislative committee, I know that that legislation moved around a bit last year, and they tried to reduce it, but they backfilled it with an additional fund. And so they made us whole on the very last day of the legislature. But moving forward, what they're trying to do is reduce the amount, but make it stable, so it cannot change every
So
year.
it would go from 1.5 to maybe 1, or
Maybe
we,
1, maybe 1.2.
Valley County needs this.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no question asked. We need this.
And we need SRS on top of it to accomplish
Yes.
anything.
But the more important thing is consistency.
Yes.
Right.
That's what
Absolutely, yes. And that's what we're pushing for in the legislative realm, is that consistency. People need to know what we can budget for.
exactly.
So moving down,
Along with-
we don't know exactly what this is going to be or what we're going to project, but we will make sure that once we should get our fourth quarter payment, the end of July, July 23rd is when we received it last year. We're hoping that we get it a little bit sooner this year, just so we can get the commissioners our projected revenue for the road department before we need to publish. the overall-
IAC may have it. If you wanna reach out to them to see if they can provide that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be surprised if they. The next revenue is grants LTAC. Speaking with Dan and Jeff, we're reducing this to 95,000. The LTAC grant that we have for next year is, I don't know if you want to talk about the project, the LTAC project, Dan, or
So, that project is our safety project. Horn Wagon. And we're just getting started with the process of contracting. So we're in, probably July or August before I think we actually get started. Most likely it'll be sometime towards latter part of October until you probably see, invoice, but we're anticipating on consistent invoices.
And it's only $95,000 for that contract.
Yeah, and what we'll end up doing is it's a reimbursement portion of it, so we'll pay the full amount. As for
the next one is the 319 grant. That's with Valley Soil and Water. It's our understanding that there will be a 319 grant awarded. The cost might be a little bit higher than what the 35,000 we receive in reimbursement, but at this point in time, the road department is looking at moving forward with that grant. RAC grant, the road department was not going to pursue any RAC grants for fiscal year 2026.
We don't have a rack in place right now, but there is funding out there.
So we do have the one that we're pursuing. So that's what happened this year, but I'm trying to anticipate less funds. So I'm trying to look at where I could adjust. And I think the more important is probably trying to get more local funds that would be more towards the population necessarily.
Forest apportionment, Chairman, Commissioners, we are going to, since it's passed the Senate, we'd like to project that we're going to receive SRS. I know, but Dan is fully aware that if we do not receive that money, there's going to have to be cuts in his budget to account for that. But I do think the county should at least budget for that projected revenue. But I would defer to the commissioners if they feel comfortable with that or not.
I would leave it in for now.
Okay, Forest Service road agreement, after speaking with Dan and Jeff, there will not be any agreements with the Forest Service for improvements of Forest Service roads. So we reduce that to zero. Interest on investments, 100,000 is typically what the road department receives in interest on investments, so we left it at that. Fuel reimbursement, this is what the road department receives from the other departments for the fuel that's purchased. Scroll down. It's not responding. Fees for service for motor pool vehicles, when the county does service on the motor pool vehicles. There is reimbursement that they receive from the other departments. 22,000 is what we feel is a projected number. Sale of county property, this is any vehicles that the road department plans on selling. After discussing with Dan and Jeff, we feel that 40,000 can be projected for that. Miscellaneous revenue, I hate this one, but we have to have it just for those catch-alls for anything that doesn't fall within these other.
600, go after that 637,000.
That was the.
Oh, wait, that's FEMA.
Yeah, that is.
We have
That was
to have a
the
major problem and wait
Okay,
10
so
years.
that makes sense.
Permit fees, this is, are the approach permits. Commissioners, I think the county needs to take a look at this fee that we assess for the approach permits, potentially have a public hearing on that. But a lot of other counties are charging more than the $50 on a driveway. And it takes a lot of time after discussing this with with Dan, with Jeff. So I think that the commissioners should in fact consider increasing this fee in the future for the road department.
Let's put together what your actual costs are.
Yep.
Time and that kind of stuff and bring back for
RDAs, the road development agreements, after speaking with, again, Jeff and Dan, we've decided to reduce this to 200,000. This is any new projects where the county enters into road development agreements where we receive cash from those developers and then the county goes out and does that work. Commissioners, after, again, discussing with Dan and Jeff, we have approximately, I think it was 61,000 in RDAs now that I'm really encouraging the road department to get out and do that work sooner than later. Okay, now we get into the general budget. Commissioners, we're just going to skip over at this point in time the salaries, which will be discussed later. So I'd like to get in, except for, we're going to discuss it later if that's okay. What I'd like to do is just review the general B budget for the road department at this point in time, and that is starting with supply or travel mileage. So there was an increase to this for travel mileage, and I'll let Dan explain to you why it went from 1,000 to 3,000 if he would like.
So this is where I am planning on attending any more conference activities. And so in part, I will probably end up doing more travel. I also feel that there are opportunities currently where I might need to travel in a different jurisdiction to bounce essential ideas off of whatever project it could be. So there's these additional travel mileage that I thought would be best to provide an increase to that because I already know that it's going down that path where I'm going to have that additional travel. I probably didn't have it when I was first hired.
Jeff was not able to travel as much. He was needed to be here, so. Understood.
Commissioners, and previously you just kind of want to take a look at the significant increases, but I don't know if you want to go line by line for the road department. I
want to go line by line, but I do want to ask Dan's opinion on like the clothing. I know we're constantly buying the guys coveralls and that kind of stuff. So in the sheriff's department, they were just going to give out a voucher per year. This is the amount you have this year to spend on clothing, tools, that kind of thing. Is that something that you would like to consider instead of, trying to track every one of these purchases and what's happening? Like your feedback on that, and you don't have to make that decision today, but.
Yeah, let me think through that. I know in the way I've been going through a lot of the claims requests for that. And so there might be a better approach where we just not have to worry about purchased item, but that they would just get a increased amount at some point.
And that was, because as a taxpayer, if I take off my hat, it's always confusing to me on why we supply uniforms, if you will, guys. I mean, there's a lot of mechanics out there. Is that standard in the industry that, or why are we buying them instead of providing them by the county and we just have so many available there?
Like somehow somebody has to clean them. So that's part of it. And then, it's always interesting because my office is right next to where all of the uniforms are. And, I would think that it would be better suited that we would just give them an increase in terms of.
Let them take care
Let
of
me
it.
chew on that. I
Okay.
don't want to necessarily say.
I think it's very, when we're going through and paying bills, that's one of the things I always look at and kind of scratch my head because it's very time consuming the way that we're doing it. And their tools to include it in all of that. We're replacing, items here and there. And I don't know if that's industry standard, but I've always wondered why.
Now, let me chew on that.
I went down in the welding shop, down in mechanics. I like it when you're going down on everything.
That was by design,
Oh, because somewhere in here, there's a big up somewhere.
somewhere. Trying to soften the blow.
Is it in the top one that we're not going over yet?
No,
Section
not at this
four?
point in time.
Okay, go down to the
Okay.
next sheet. And all of this budget, you feel you've accounted for any move to the new location?
Yeah, I bumped, see, this is where I was trying to balance it, so I bumped up those items where I thought we're gonna need additional, but then I would offset it based on, things that I thought we were, over the last couple of years, we were high, and we always came in way under, so I thought, well, okay, so maybe we could adjust that a little bit.
Commissioners, there is one line that I really want to bring to the attention is the fleet management. We're taking that down to zero because
Oh,
the
wow.
existing program doesn't really exist, or it doesn't function the way that I feel that the commissioners thought it was going to function. And Dan has a better suggestion with the software that we are hoping to bring on. And Dan, I guess I open the door for you to kind of explain.
So this is the iWorks program. They also have a module that are also associated with in fleet management. So this is one I haven't fully vetted with IT on that one yet, but I think it would be more suited if we can have the same program that we're consistently using on other modules, because sometimes it's always harder. You have to learn programs, and I try to keep it in one area, and then that way you have a better understanding of each of the programs based on the module. So I'm hoping that we can eliminate this fleet management, but incorporate it into the iWorks program.
And that by Jeremy, because I do believe that we looked at the iWorks software when we did this, and it was not as user-friendly. And so just make sure that somewhere we have identified what software you want, but make sure that it's user-friendly. I mean, we've taught this software now to 5 or 6 different employees. We've got to find somebody that's willing to stick with us and actually learn the software
Yeah,
and use it.
Don't
This
you
was-
use other iWorks modules?
we do. Yep. So
Just an additional
this is
module.
just an additional module.
It's just this module, when we looked at it, was very,
I think there's some manual work that would have to be done. It's entering in the information of the areas, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the road department was conducting work on, is that right?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is have a kind of a one system approach, so that as we go into requesting for a levy, we have the program, the software that backs all of that up with additional information. That's what I'm trying to push for.
and that was, the road advisory committee was adamant that we know more about our vehicles, we're keeping track of our vehicles, we know when to replace more, and what we're spending on these. There was a huge request when we went after this software. And for some reason, we did not choose iWorks. I'm just saying, make sure that it is
I'll find-
functional.
Yeah, I'll find that. Was that at the time that Jeremy?
Yes.
So I'll ask him.
We're not gonna do any chip sealing, or we're gonna reduce chip sealing,
Yes,
paving by Valley County, but increase the paving for contractors.
yes.
Okay.
Until we get to a point where we have additional funds, I think that's best approach, because we're gonna have to balance all of this. One of the things, that we'll end up wanting to go down the path is to update our chip seal program. So our, equipment for that is, I wanna say seventies. And it's not efficient enough to keep up. So what I'm hoping is that future, here, not next year, but the year after that, that's probably when chip equipment, so that we can do the program ourselves.
Is that gonna be as efficient as hiring it out?
I think we have to have our own crews, educated to do this kind of work and need the equipment for it. Is it going to be, there's gonna be a little bit of both that's gonna happen, not holistically all of the county's responsibility will be the chip seals. There might be opportunities where we do, they're called friction seals, which is a little bit different than typical seal coat. It just provides more friction because of the ice conditions that we're going to have. Gives it a better bite to vehicle as it. So, there's going to be both. But I want to start to head down the path that we need to have our own ships.
Because it's cheaper.
Because it's cheaper, that will do. And we have to educate our staff to ensure that, you know, we're performing it correctly. So there's going to be two things that are going to happen. The education portion of it, and then over time, we're going to get there. We're going to get to making it more efficient.
The challenge is turnover, right?
Yeah.
So you have efficiencies there of companies that do it all the time versus turnover of employees where you have to continually retrain. Maybe they're never going to be as efficient as a chip seal company.
Right.
Is my concern.
And that's why I think we're going to have to balance it. One year it might be heavy on the county side. One year it might be heavy on the county side. So we'll have to balance it. Because we really need to get through all of our paved routes, I'm gonna say within a 7 to 10 year lifespan. So with that, you're gonna need both.
You're talking about basically an ongoing maintenance plan,
Yeah, I mean, the
chip sealing.
The problem with the contractors, though they're more efficient on it, it just costs more money. And so you're gonna have to find an even balance between the two.
So the $1 million in paving this year, is that, Roseberry?
So, that for next year, I'm still hoping this year, I still try to get that done this year. But for next year, I wanna move into the next phase. That's my plan. And with that, I wanna also look at another farm to market or something like that, where, just have to continually to go down the path of finding these really bad sections.
So are you talking paving with this million then, or are you talking chip sealing?
No, it'd be mostly paving.
Paving, okay. So if,
Why did you take all the drug testing out?
We will be utilizing the HR budget for that.
Okay.
It did not make any sense to budget for that in the road department's budget, and we moved that fund or that expense into HR.
It's going somewhere, you know.
And that was with the discussion with Mike, so I'd not. Didn't just do it without consulting.
No, that's great. I think drug testing is a great
Yep.
to have liability.
The people driving big rigs. You go
Yes.
down to the next page.
Sorry.
Road development funds, what is that one?
That's the RDA, Madam Chairman, that we discussed when we enter into road development agreements. And we have to put that back out onto, money that's collected needs to be done with work. We need a specific line to account for that.
Okay, so that was the income.
Any other questions?
So on your capital equipment funds, you guys always have the largest CIP requests. So do you ever see, is that pretty much a stable amount now so that we don't have those huge ups and downs? You're identifying things every year that is end of life?
So I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that it's starting to get back to more of a balance. However, John Deere has to get replaced. So
I know what John Deere is, but I have no idea. Do
so
we
it's
have
a-
5
it's a
of those?
grader
or-
that's I want to say it's another 1980s that
Okay.
we only use it in certain situations, and but
1980?
I think it's a 1980.
Oh my goodness, it's got a lot of hours on it.
Yeah, and it's really needs to be replaced. So that will be I think it was on the CIP. At least there was a
Oh, yes,
discussion.
there's a lease, right?
Yeah.
Over 5 years?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, yep, it's on.
So, I think there's going to be a lot more, with the new building, trying to get that up and running, to over this next year before we request it, additional.
You got $1.5 million on this year's budget for the building and $1.5 million next year. Is a bunch of that just carry over?
I think it's just a.
Yes, and commissioners, we are hoping that 1.5 would be able to be utilized in other areas within the road department's budget based on the ending cost of the building, based on what we have in LACTF money to fund the project. There's 3.8 million in LACTF money still available that we would like to utilize fully on that, and then the estimated final cost was 4.2 million. We're hoping that we come under or just right at that, and we do believe that there will be some of the 1.5 that can be reallocated in the road department's budget to potentially do additional paving is what our hope is.
So you had a carryover balance of like 9 million or 10 million last year. And that's, how much are we
So the-
using of that as we go into this budget?
To what I've requested Dan, he still has a significant amount of expenditures to make this year. What we have, this year's budget was 10 million. I've asked him to carry over at least 2 million of his existing budget to help fund next year's budget. And I think we're gonna be okay for fiscal year 2026. But after that, commissioners, unless we can
Gotta change.
something's got to change. Unless we have, we're assured of the user fees, increases of the user fees, and we can rely on SRS for years to come. If that is not going to take place, the county definitely needs to, the commissioners need to do something, either a temporary override or consider a permanent override.
Well, and honestly, if I'm looking at this with the road conditions that we have right now, $1 million in pavings doesn't even come close
It
to
doesn't.
handling anything that we need to fix our roads. So, I mean, if we had the funds and there were contractors available, we could use 5 million this year just to do some work on our roads. So, it's not if we need to do something, it's just when.
Correct.
Because we simply have got to make improvements. People are furious. The 6 years I've been here, it's like, The bullets are starting to get more sharp.
It's gonna get worse before it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
That is,
No, that's what's gonna happen. It's going to be better
Get more people
until we get more funds.
on the roads. That's why.
It's just, you start to see the exponentiating failures that happen. And there's no way to get the funding to accommodate any of that. But
So-
you'll start to see it as long as we get that good maintenance program established, and so then you can seal more of your roads.
we need a conversation put on the agenda about a road levy and steps forward and when we need this to happen. And it may
Commissioners,
not be in November, cause I think we're too late for that, but the following May, I think we need to have a full conversation of how to do this moving forward. What do you think? What
Oh,
do you
yeah.
think?
I've already been talking with them. We know this is an issue.
We can have the discussion, it doesn't mean the decision's made.
Yeah, absolutely. But the community also needs to know, why we have so many potholes. And we just have no funding. We are one of the very few counties that do not have a pool of funds within our general fund to fund the road department. And that's the way historically it's been, it's the way it's always been, and it's gonna have to change moving forward. We're gonna have to have additional funding in that road budget.
Oh, we did it one time, 30 years ago.
You remember back then?
I do.
Okay. All right, let's see. And then we need to come back to what one?
The preliminary projected revenue, if we
Oh,
can just
yeah.
touch on that, but I don't know, I'll try to get through it in 5 minutes. Next matter's on it.
We're running a little bit late when we started, so let's look at it.
I'll sneak out of here then.
Thank you, Dan.
Sneak, crawl out. Okay. We didn't get one with all of those numbers on it.
I thought you did, it should have been.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I'm up one page, which didn't have anything. That must be salaries. Never mind. I'm down. Okay, the liquor allocation, Doug.
Yes.
So we're only spending a very small portion of that. I am having a conversation this week with
So we're spending all of that.
the liquor allocation.
Yes, it's approximately $76,000 a quarter that comes into the general fund budget.
Okay,
I
so
think you're referring to the junior college.
I am.
So that what we did in the past is we have reapportioned some of that to fund junior college. Since we have a large junior college balance, all of that liquor allocation that we are receiving goes directly into the general fund now.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes, we transitioned that.
I am talking to the Workforce Development Council because some of those funds can be used for CTE classes in the schools.
Okay.
So I want to know, but that wouldn't be for this next year anyway, so. Okay, but that's good to know that it's not going directly into junior college, that we
It's
are
not-
going ahead.
It's going directly into the general fund.
Okay,
Commissioners, at this point in time, the revenue sharing, we could potentially increase this one based on the history of 600,000, but this year you can see we are substantially lower than we have been in 2023 and 2024. If we did increase it, I would not recommend us increasing it much more than the projected 435,000.
do we get any other funding coming in before our year end on that? So we don't.
We have one more payment, sorry. We will have one more payment coming in.
We
So
know what
yes,
that payment potentially could look like. Okay,
I'd say it probably 100,000,
okay.
maybe a little bit less.
So if we need further funding when we get to budget,
We could
as far
potentially
as salaries, then,
We could increase this.
okay.
The fire mitigation, after speaking with Mara, we feel that we can reduce that to 240,000. This is actual Idaho Department, this is for Idaho Department of Land grants that we receive specifically for fire mitigation with IDL. We are going to be reducing that to 240,000.
If she gets another one.
That's
we
G&A,
have to- oh,
or if she gets another one, we could,
we can adjust the budget.
We
We
could.
can reopen the budget.
this grant line, the one that we're reducing to 150,000, this one is just in 0118, the general fund grant that we've utilized in the past for sheriff's office, when the sheriff's office went out for one of their grants. We feel that we can reduce this to 150,000
After,
on the expense side and on the revenue side.
after meeting with Ignite today on that building, if we do a CDBG grant to try and improve the senior center portion of that, would this be the line item
Yes.
to do it on?
This would be the expense line to do that. So if you want to
I think we do need to put something in there.
increase it, okay.
Yeah. No, those are 250. I wanna talk to Ken about that, cause I think that we need to try and go after something again.
Madam Chairman, I talked with him at the lunch hour, and he is going to be exploring opportunities through Department of Commerce, so he's
Okay.
working on that right now.
Because I think we may have to do some remodeling eventually, and we are gonna have to do some work on the playground area over there. So I need to talk to him to see if there's any kind of playground equipment or a city park type deal to do that. So let's have further conversations about that line item.
Economic development, this is economic development grants. We are reducing the projected to 308,000 because there's going to be a match for that safety grant that that Ken is applying for on behalf of Dan, that road and safety grant. So that's why we reduced that revenue line. The GNA infrastructure, this is regarding the Good Neighbor Authority that we were, the contract or the agreement that we have with the Forest Service that assists with the funding of Mara, as well as with her position, as well as any projects. Again, commissioners, if you remember, this is a 5-year grant. This would be year 3, with 2 more years to come after that. Commissioners, the payment in lieu of taxes, this is our PILT. This is an area, or this is a revenue line that we could potentially increase if needed. We did receive our PILT, as I shared with the commissioners. This year, 400,000 will be receipted in, with the other 600,000 put in the fund, the PILT fund. But this expense line, or this revenue line, could be increased if needed, if you want to utilize more PILT to assist with the funding of the general fund.
I want you guys to look at the fact that it's going 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. So every year we're relying more and more on PILT. Should we not get that, we are in big trouble. So
Commissioners, you could also potentially use the PILT payment for the road department though too.
Right.
I just want to make sure that the commissioners are fully aware of that. That's always an option in dire situations,
Strictly using it for capital expenditures.
basically. Not only just to fund the general fund budget.
that's salaries too. The reason that that's up there and we started taking it is because we couldn't cover salaries. So we
Right.
started backfilling the budget with that.
We're not backfilling the tilt from salaries.
We're
We're using right now that 400,000.
We had to increase the amount that we receipt into the general fund from PILT to assist with the increased cost that the county has overall.
That's why I'm saying you put so much in savings and you put so much toward the budget. That's fine. You don't want too much of a large budget, you know? We don't wanna rely totally on the taxes to fund our budget and our fees. But you also need a good, healthy savings account
Well,
when things happen.
yeah, I get that. I just don't like using that kind of money for wages. Okay.
Commissioners, unfortunately, we've seen a decrease in recording fees, so we were projecting to reduce that by 5,000. We projected 120,000 this fiscal year. We've only collected 85,000.
You know why? You know?
You know, it's hard to determine what the mitigating factor is. Is it home sales decreasing? I don't know. Some things to take into consideration.
I just wondered if they'd changed the policy at all with
No,
title.
the policy has not
companies or anything.
changed. Commissioners, this is one that we could potentially increase to 200,000 to 700,000. If you can see, the Valley County Jail has collected a significant amount of revenue from the state by housing state inmates. The money that is collected is receipted into the general fund that assists with just the general fund funding. I shared with you that the jail is in need of some significant repairs in the future. But for next fiscal year, I do think that we could potentially increase this. Based on what we're seeing, 700,000 probably would be safe. It's a bit of a stretch. I personally wouldn't want to do more than say 100,000 to 600,000 in case there's a drop off. However, I do understand that there's some legislation that the counties are going to be recommending to increase the daily rate. So that's something to take into consideration as well. I'm not ready to put a final number here, but this is one that could potentially be adjusted.
We have another payment coming.
We do. We have 3 more payments coming.
It's the daily rate, so that's all the counties are seeing it's across the board.
Yes, I believe it's $75 a day. And I think they're gonna be recommending, don't quote me on this, but I think it's in the range of 120 a day is what they're proposing.
Wow. It's a big jump.
Well, you go too high and then they'll build a state prison and we won't get those inmates. Doug, if you go back to that, why wouldn't we go up 200? I mean, that's instead of 100.
Well, because if you see that was the limit that we collected, right? Again, so we're gonna bank on that we are in fact going to be collecting 700,000. If we don't, then you would have to use 200,000 of, say we only collect 600,000. We're definitely gonna have to use some of our remaining cash to fund what we didn't levy for.
But we don't see anything on the horizon that's gonna change. I mean, if anything.
Not necessarily, we don't.
Well,
No, we don't.
I think that one would be pretty, I don't know.
Okay.
With 2 more payments coming, I think we put 700 on that.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, this interest on investments, I just recently received an updated number from the treasurer. We're gonna increase this to 425,000, so there will be an increase to this one to 425,000 based on her projections for next fiscal year. Our interest on investments, what we do have to consider is the money that is earning interest is gonna be expended, so we're not gonna have that. So that's why we're not gonna take it up to 500, 600,000.
That interest, I mean, once ARPA's gone and
Once ARPA's gone, that's gonna be a drastic decrease.
big,
Yeah.
so the interest will just fall back into general fund, is that what?
That's where it goes now. Well, this amount comes into the general fund and then the road department receives a portion as well.
Okay.
All of the other projected revenue, Commissioners, the only one that I did want to bring to your attention, unless the Commissioners have any questions regarding these, is the building permits. This one is a little alarming that we've only collected 300,000. We projected 425,000. I don't know if this is high for next year or not. I think we're gonna have to wait to see for July, August really closely before we project a final number for building permits.
I think more importantly is the impact fee area, or the impact area or whatever it is. I think the fees coming from that are potentially gonna
Compensate.
help. But we don't know that, so
So-
until we are 1 year in to all of that, we don't really know what to project there.
So Nat, you think we'll make the 425 by October 1?
I'm not sure. I just did a count. I've got 40 permits in there waiting. It doesn't say anything. And we did get rid of the shed. It's not a lot of money, but that did go to.
What's an average permit, do you think?
Average house now is probably 3 to 4,000.
140.
So that might goes there. Okay.
But they're not all houses.
Let's leave it at that, and then we'll just see what this next year holds.
The user fee one, I'd like to always kind of come to. This is what we charge the fire departments and the police, McCall Police Department for their use of dispatch. I really think that we need to reach out to them and really show them what the actual cost of a dispatcher is, and the amount of calls that they have. I think that this is significantly lower than what it should be.
We talked to the sheriff about that last year.
And I believe that the conversations were occurring. I just don't know if anything final has been indicated or if it needs to come back to the commissioners for approval. But this is one that I really think the county needs to take a look at in the future to make sure that we are in fact billing for what our actual costs of the use of the dispatcher is.
From other counties.
From McCall Police Department and the fire departments, and technically Valley County-wide EMS now,
Oh my goodness.
because they're utilizing our dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
But will you follow up with the sheriff on that one and just say we're asking if that needs to go up?
Any other questions?
Like we haven't received a lot of our income yet. A lot of different areas.
Usually it's the last, these ones are the ones that we do at the end of the year, Madam Chairman, the adjustments that we make at the end of the year. Real quickly, I just would like to, the road department, we kind of already talked about. Airport doesn't collect any additional revenue, neither does the ambulance district court. We feel that what the projections that we have are probably pretty accurate. The only one that potentially could have an increase is motor vehicle fines. Over the last few years, we've collected 65,000, 69,000. This year, we've only collected 39,000 though. Could this potentially be adjusted by 10,000? It could. I think we'll take a closer look at the end of July. The one that we did reduce is scram units. Or actually, we didn't. This was one I think we do need to reduce because they are not utilizing the scram as they have been in the past. They're, if you remember Dee Dee indicating, they're going to more of a UA focus instead of the actual scram device to test individuals for alcohol. Just noticing this is probably one that we should potentially reduce, maybe to 2,000. Fairgrounds, that's just property tax. Election consolidation, this was what we've just received from the state every year. This is what we're using now to assist or to compensate our elections director. So the majority of this is being utilized to fund her salary, just FYI. Indigent and charity, this is what we've collected so far this year. Is $5,000 from payments from individuals that were on the indigent program. This is drastically less than what we've collected in prior years. I do think that we still should leave it maybe around 15, potentially reducing it. Commissioners, this is one that we will have on the agenda to discuss entering in a contract with a nonprofit or private agency. Reval does not collect solid waste. Commissioners, this is, we could potentially increase the gate fee projected revenue. So far this year, we've collected $1.1 million. I would feel comfortable maybe increasing that to 1.4 based on what we're seeing, the use of the gate fees. To get a better understanding after the next few months to see where we're at, to have a better projection. Commissioners, though, based on what we are seeing, I don't think there's gonna be a need to increase, the personal solid waste fees or the commercial fees for next fiscal year. But if there is a need in the future to have significant improvements, I do think that's something that the commissioner is gonna have to take into consideration to assist with funding. If there's a need to expand the area that we're already working on, as well as, the possibility of a regional, thank you, I couldn't come up with the wording, a regional landfill.
Yeah, we'll have to have that conversation as we move forward. I'd really like to see a new fee put into if somebody doesn't have a covered load, so
Okay.
we've got people working on that.
Weeds, this is just the revenue that we received from the Forest Service and from the state of Idaho. We are leaving that at the same amounts that we projected over the past few years. Pest control is the same. Waterways, right now, we have not received our main payment from Idaho Department of Recreation. But we feel it's gonna be around the 125,000 to 135,000 range, so this might be something that we increase. But again, this is, directly funds the waterway program. We,
Doug,
yeah.
on that, the contract with the BOR, we just signed another agreement today for 34,000, but it doesn't look like we have.
Madam Chairman, I noticed that too.
Payment.
It went into the general fund, which it shouldn't have. It needs to come into
Oh,
this fund, so
got
we're
it.
gonna make an adjustment there.
Okay.
Commissioners, unfortunately, we have not received our revenue from the state of Idaho for snowmobiling, so we don't know. And that's always frustrating that we don't get that payment until July, August. So we don't know what to project for fiscal year 2026 for snowmobile registration, so we're monitoring this closely until we get that payment. And Commissioners, I believe that concludes all of the projected revenue. Any questions? If you have, please have, continue to review. If you have any additional questions, don't hesitate, come see me or send me an email and we'll respond in a timely fashion. Thank you.
I think in the next few weeks, we should have a lot more information.
You should have, we should.
Alright, perfect.
It's busy.
We're a little behind, but our next item is Valley Soil and Water. Welcome. Just like an annual update. Doug, if you'll remember to turn that off so I can hear.
Yep, sorry.
Next, come to the table.
Perfect.
Come on up here.
Pull that microwave, man, I did, I need to be done today. I asked for a nap at lunch, but nobody would accommodate, so.
We'll get you a cot set up in the back room here.
Yeah, you better not, cause I might use it. It's getting old stuff's not for wusses, you know? He's older than I am, so therefore I can't complain.
Older than he is.
He's still working, go fishing. Oops. Oh, don't trip yourself, whatever you do.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Formal introductions or anything like that for the record?
Yes, you do, please.
John Lillahug, 1303 Ponderosa Street in McCall, Board Supervisor for the Valley County Soil District.
And Dorena Farr with Valley Soil and Water Conservation District, District Manager.
Perfect.
Thank you. Just the two items that I handed you. The first one is a breakdown that the state puts out. There's the Soil Commission, Idaho State Soil Commission puts out of all the different counties or districts in the state of funding that each soil district puts in for the fiscal year. And as if you notice, it's actually on the second page.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, Valley number 47, the total was $17,663. This was for our 24 fiscal year. So,
So first of all, we submit our match report every August, and that's what we come to the commissioners. So we'll be coming to the commissioners sometime later in July or the 1st of August we go through, you had some questions about the match report, did you? Where we list the amounts that we receive from the county and include the other items that are matched or provided by the county.
That $17,000 that you see there is what we get back to the county, which includes the $8,500 cash contribution we get from the county. It also includes what we use, some in-kind costs from the county to add to that amount. And part, yeah. In-kind cost, the local services, typically we use the office space that you provide us. We've got a dollar figure for that. And then some of the other, like using the EOC heating room, they cost for that several times a year. Postage, paper supplies, just some of those things that we can show as in-kind costs that we get from you or use some of your facilities to do that.
So the question that
Sure.
Dorena is referencing, you guys need to see the bottom of this. So not only do we give the $8,500 cash match, but in the past, there have been questions. So like Dorena had a problem with a computer this year and reached out to IT. But that's not a county issue. You guys need to deal with your own computers. If you were a subsidiary of some way of Valley County, then those would be our responsibilities. But there's always been questions since I've been here, as far as when you reach out and say, you supply our paper and those types of things. Those are hard costs to the county. And that's why I think there's always been a question. We give an $8,500 cash deposit, and then we're also supplying hard costs. So technically, we're not just giving $8,500. We're truly giving close to this in our actual contribution. The office space is something, that's not a hard cost to us. That's something that we just absorb. The same thing with the meeting space, but postage, office supplies, when we do GIS maps, color printing, that kind of thing, those are hard costs to the county. So thank you for this. This has never been explained to me this way. And so it's always just been, we give you cash and the rest of it hasn't been explained that way.
It's signed every year by the commissioners.
Well, that doesn't mean we look at it, Dorena.
Okay.
Is that part of
This
it
is
too?
the document that we do, that we're required to submit to this state every August 16th.
Okay.
So that is, we've always come before the board and you voted on that and approved those expenditures.
This is a more thorough breakdown than what I think that we have been given in the past. So for my understanding, anyway,
It's been, we have those for years back.
I understand that.
The other point to note is that then that amount is matched by the state. So that comes back to the county and our natural resource work for this county. So if you're only providing the 85, then the state only matches on that 85. And some of the things we just can't do, like doing the mailings where it involves the county and other partners for forestry, the newsletter, and the South Lake Sewer District.
When you say you
Most of
can't
it is,
do those.
yeah, most of it's outreach type of material. We're using that funding source for,
Okay.
using that from the county is for outreach. programs and stuff like that.
including letters sent to the county in opposition of what we're doing. It always feels like we're in conflict. Why does it always feel like we're in conflict?
We don't mean to see it that way. It's just we're trying to bring out our point on the deal.
And we listen to your points.
Anyway, like Dorena says, that money that we get from the county then is used to get a match from the state to fund our budget for the year. Stuff like that. Doing some yeah, you get copies of that? That's just the one.
You have them in your file?
I hope I didn't leave them. I might have.
So if I look at these counties, which ones are closest in size to what our program is? Like Paya County, they only give $6,000. Oh, so these are not county, well, yeah, these are the soil conservation districts.
Districts, it's not county, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So that, sometimes they overlap. Like Squaw Creek Conservation District overlaps Boise County, some of Gem County, some of Idaho, or some of Valley County, because they do cover High Valley, that type of stuff. Yeah, it's the district, I guess, on that part of it.
I guess I go back to, somebody of like size, same type of programming, but how does our contribution stack up?
I think we're kind of in the middle. There's obviously like Ada counties, they've got a lot going on down there, and stuff, they get a little bit more money in that, or quite a bit more money in that.
Yeah, Blaine, Bonner, they're almost identical to us.
Yeah.
Really, we're median high.
Yeah.
We are one of the most active districts as far as grant and bringing in grant funds. And not just DEQ water quality grants, but the Closing America's Wastewater Access Gap. That is all summarized on this sheet.
That's a great project that's ongoing right now.
Yes, and that, they're approved for $88,000 contribution to this project, and they said they could approve a higher budget if need be, so.
So what would you do with an $88,000 grant? I mean, is infrastructure work or?
It is not, it's no cost technical assistance, so they are the cost of providing the professionals to the project. So it's not implementation. They will cover the costs of the well monitoring for the South Lake, determine if the septics are influencing wells in that area. They've decided that they won't be testing the lake because of the inputs from the Payette Lake sewer districts. So if they test positive, there's no way to determine.
Just skew their numbers.
Yeah. Well, there's no way to determine where it's coming from.
And are they gonna test the Cascade well? There was conversation around testing the Cascade well.
To
on
be
that.
a little bit further north than that.
Okay.
So, they're working to determine which ones would best reflect.
I would think the Cascade
Septics.
well, wouldn't they have to test anyway and see if
They
there
do.
was?
They
Okay, so
test
that should already be done.
quarterly. Yes, it did.
Oh, okay. Apologize, I thought I had made copies of that,
Copies.
the last one
Yes.
you have.
So this one if you need it.
So
back.
this is just a kind of a summary that we've put together of our activity of different grants and stuff over the past year or two. And what I did is I kind of totaled up some stuff here, or Rena did, and the last couple of years, we've probably brought in close to $2 million worth of grants
Huh.
for the different, all these different things going on. Some, and there probably is somewhat we didn't report on here because we didn't add those in. It didn't quite fit right into
Is
that.
that just in your guys' district?
Just within the district.
Oh my goodness. A lot.
So I just did some calculations, you know, if that $2 million that we brought in, and the contribution that the county's put into that 17,000, for every dollar that, you know, you provide us, we're bringing in about $131 to the ag community, you know, in form of grants and stuff like that.
Not just the ag community,
Well,
but forestry and.
Forestry, yeah.
You guys actually got a grant for the $965,000 to give to the district?
The
do
district
that
is the
pipe?
sponsor for Lake Irrigation District grant, and that's through the Aging Infrastructure Grant.
And so the water monitoring by BOR, I didn't realize that they had a 2-year water monitoring. I remember the meeting that they came and we had that conversation, but have they done water monitoring?
Are you talking about
$250,000?
$250,000 was the cost of doing the modeling study that they did on the reservoir. And that came about because of those water operations meetings that we held that were a result of the Watershed Summit online meetings that happened in 20, right when COVID hit. We had to,
Everything went online.
I know, and then we
Electronic.
did, and then we started meeting in person at the EOC, and everybody came, the agencies from Boise, IDWR,
Oh, that was a good meeting.
they were really good meetings. And from that, BOR committed to doing this 2-year modeling study to see what they could do as far as their operations to affect water quality within the reservoir. So they spent $250,000 and really found that there was really, they're so limited on what they can do with operations. I mean, they're already, that water is spoken for, they're obligated, and they do everything we've seen, they do a really good job.
I know that there were a lot of people that actually had some pretty major concerns with that study, and that they didn't feel like it was actually done the way that what it was intended to be.
Well, we're probably not gonna see anything, all the people that worked on it are gone in the last 6 months, so.
Yeah, that maybe the data was wasn't accurate to what we.
Didn't show the results we thought we were gonna see.
No,
Not the results we wanted to see.
Yeah.
BOR was pretty solid to begin with, that they didn't have much room to, people were wanting to keep the pool full longer, and they just don't have that ability with the water rights down below that are the primary, or, priority water users are down below compared to a lot of the water rights up here, so.
Does that sound like the federal government spent $250,000 to prove that you can't do anything about the
Well, I think
problems?
they
we
were-
have?
they
it
were
was just a model. I mean, it wasn't even a
was a
study.
computer
They never. It was a
Oh.
computer model.
Well, if you keep coming to our board meetings, Ryan Hedrick will be on there, and he shows like just the technical aspect of that water quantity management. And so does Neil Shippey talks of it also, but Ryan Hedrick is the BOR person that handles that water operations stuff, and it's a pretty complex.
Have you heard, are they making any progress toward retaining that extra 20% of the water that's available in the reservoir for Valley County? Have you heard anything more about that?
Well, that's.
They are still working with attorneys to
Okay.
work through that.
To try to get this, okay, great.
The congressional representatives.
So realizing, we write a grant, it may not be for that total amount that you see there. It's dependent on what the grant, or how it's set up and stuff. So we put in for a grant of say 100,000, and it won't cover the total cost of doing the project. So we partner with a lot of different groups, Fish and Game, you know, all
Valley
that,
County,
Adams County,
Valley.
Valley County, excuse me. Yeah. I was looking at Adams at the time. But yeah, we partner with a lot of, try to bring in more availability, more funds to get that cost done. So it's, yeah, kind of,
More people to the table.
yeah. And that helps too, is, you know, we get a lot of different perspectives, I guess, in some ways on who we bring in and how it might get finalized, done, or get the work done.
Really, one of the strongest examples is on that, the riparian fencing around the reservoir. The match is always much higher than the actual grant funds that we receive that goes to the ICC crew. So that's contributed by Idaho Fish and Game and BOR providing all the materials, and a lot of volunteer labor by the supervisors.
So with these grants, when the work gets completed or hopefully gets to the completion stage and stuff, there's still a lot of work left on our end, on the reporting part of, you know, what happened, how the money was spent, what work got done, and stuff like that. So this just, like, this is a final report for the,
This is for the one that we just closed, the 696, which is the Heinrich Alzar Depot, Valley County Road Department on Gibson Creek, and City of Cascade Stormwater Engineering. So, yeah, we have enough for one pothole.
Perfect.
Yeah.
speaking of money there, some coming back.
$35?
35,000.
Oh, I can't read it upside down.
I had to check it though, make
Oh.
sure.
So that was our
Oh, nice.
contribution that we've been working with the road department over the years on
Nice.
West Mountain Road to, you know, get that
Doug
fixed
received
up.
that in.
And that's, we put in for a grant to cover what, this was for a culvert, and that's what usually what we've been doing out there, is helping out on the cost of putting in these culverts and
So
stuff.
we've been waiting on this to put the culvert in? Is Jeff?
It's
No,
done.
it's done.
It's
Okay,
done.
perfect. So this reimbursement? Okay, perfect.
We just didn't.
You can't close the grant until they're all completed.
Yeah, okay. Perfect.
So with that idea too, is with all these grants that we're coming in with, we reach a certain limit where we're required to have an audit done. To an outside third-party audit.
You had asked
That's
about
in
our
federal funds.
financial or fiscal
Mhm.
process. You know, so if we're required to do the financial reports to the state commission, we're required also to file with the state controller's office for the transparency act, or what is it? So we do that last year, and this year we do a training down with Brandon for all the districts, go down and do this training for the state controller's office on how to do that new reporting system. So we do that, but if we surpass receipts of 150,000, then we're required by the state to do an audit. And we just reached that threshold last year for the first time since I've been here.
We've reached it, this is, as long as I've been on the board, this is the second time that we've got to that point.
Say congratulations, but they're.
Well, yeah, because there's a cost.
I was really scared, but we passed with flying colors, so.
Yeah.
And they check all your processes as far as check signatures, and we, our monthly reconciliations with the bank and control of those expenditures, so those are all checked. We had no recommendations
No.
except that I'm supposed to take more vacation time.
I think the audits are gonna be a thing of every day from here on out.
So, yeah, we do go through a fairly
Rigorous.
lengthy and sometimes costly reporting system to keep everybody
Keep it on.
the up and up and the transparency of all the money that we do spend.
That's great.
This is, finally, I just wanted to show you, this is our, we call it our 5-year action plan. And each year we update that for the coming fiscal year. And so this is available.
That's 5-year action plan for projects.
Yeah.
Kind of
And
scoping
we
it
break,
out.
yeah, we break it down by,
It's an annual plan and a 5-year plan. But the district has 6 priorities.
Yep. so like number 1 is, water quality and quantity. And we've got, find out what the objectives are, what our actions, hopefully we can take to get that done. And that's kind of our check and balance amongst the board supervisors, is to keep that, this annual thing in mind, because there's things tied to each one of us that we're supposed to accomplish over the year. And we go at the end of the fiscal year, we're supposed to kind of report back and see what we could accomplish and why we couldn't, and then we'll add it on to the next go around because there wasn't money there, or it wasn't the work, couldn't get done at that particular time, you know.
It's an ongoing job.
What do you think is gonna, has any work been done to see what change we may see in Cascade Lake based upon when McCall gets their pond fixed? We have no idea what that's gonna do. We don't know how many parts per million or whatever that might clean up in the lake. I just
Yeah.
really wonder, you know, I was looking recently at some DEQ reports clear back when the lake was put in place. I mean, there's been algae blooms since the lake was put in place. And I'm sure back then, you know, McCall was still draining into it potentially, so.
You know, and again, there's so many factors out there, because just the geology of this county is probably the biggest contributor to the phosphorus level.
The
and stuff
phosphorus
like
in the
that.
lake, yeah.
So you got that to contend with, but then that's what we try to do, actually with each one of these, like the state agriculture BMP grants that we put in for. We have to show what's this gonna accomplish as far as load reductions. So for example, the fence line, the fence that we helped put in down here at the south end of the lake. Total grant funding that we put in for, well, the total grant matching and stuff, roughly some $1,000, or $137,000.
That's
Well,
how
we could-
they rank the grant applications based on load reductions.
Yeah.
So
So,
when those are all
well,
calculated for every application.
We had somebody can help us out on figuring out what the load reduction would be. But they came back and said, oh, well, if we did that work, sediment would be produced by 500 or 400 tons per year, nitrogen 2,000 tons or pounds per year, phosphorus 742 pounds per year. So we have to really show what it's gonna accomplish.
And who did that calculation?
DEQ does the,
DEQ
Yeah.
does.
we have someone who does just the load calculations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they rank their applications for grants, is what projects, what your match ratio is, what the load reductions are. So,
585 tons a year. That's a lot.
these documents were produced, that's also on that sheet, that these are from the legislative display day, where we meet with the legislators to talk about the work that, projects that the districts. So we'll meet down in Boise, and they have a social hour. We have a display set up.
So I think, you know, in reality, I guess I kind of hear back that, you know, we're always focusing on septic tanks and stormwater and all that kind of stuff. That's not comparative to a lot of this stuff that other stuff that we work on and reduce or try to reduce the amount of stuff that's coming into the lake and that, so.
Jerry, back to your question about whether the Payette Lake repair will have an impact. I think we've kind of reached a tipping point with the reservoir where it's gonna take all of these different projects to make a difference. You know, we can't say it's cattle, we can't say it's development, it's everything. So we all have to pitch in where we can, and the stream bank work is a big one. Did we give you that?
Yeah.
If you don't want it, I'm happy to take them, but that just shows
We'll look at it.
that shows the final report that we do for every single grant that we get.
Did you-
The final report required
Of each project.
for each grant.
Each grant.
As you close requires a final report.
Yeah.
So, and since we've had the coalition grant, we have done a lot more of our own expenditures, covering our own expenses, but is
More of the day-to-day outreach of, like you say, with the forestry tour that we try to put on each year. You know, that's postage and the printing of the form and that is kind of what we use.
we did all of our own color printing because we have those funds from the coalition,
Yeah.
so we haven't had to utilize a color printer. But some of that was just, we just didn't have the funds and the equipment to do so. And I've always had the impression that we're just solid partners to the county. We're enhancing what is done in the county, and those dollars are matched by the state, so it's more project money to do this resource work within the county.
So since I've been on, we have new legal. And the direction from our legal team is anytime we make donations, we're to have an MOU in place with the expectation of what someone is going to do with those taxpayer dollars. So that's why I'm so sensitive is the amount of oversight that we have now. I mean, we're being required to do certain things. And if you guys were a part of the county, there would be no question. You know, we would be able to do all of these things. But now we're to the point where we have to prove where taxpayer funds are going. That's why my question was as far as the audit, to make sure you guys are audited. And you're a state agency, technically, you're not a county agency.
Technically local government.
Okay, so if you're local government, you should be your own taxing entity. That's what I think. I'm still confused on what our relationship is between the county and a soil district. And so but that's what we have to prove to our constituents. We're giving, $17,000 of taxpayer funds to an organization that technically we don't oversee. So we have to have some kind of an agreement, an MOU. This is the work that you're going to do on behalf of the county. And that's what we have now for all of our agencies that we're donating for. Like right now, the senior center, we just did an MOU. You're going to provide 2 meals a week. You're going to do these things on behalf of the county for these funds.
Well, some of these other counties must be experiencing that also. I can reach out and see about the MOUs that
That'd be great.
they're developing.
That would be
Do
great.
that. And I'll reach out to the state Soil and Water Commission.
Yeah, like the commission and
That'd
see
be
what.
great.
See what
Yeah,
they,
see what other counties are doing.
okay.
So that's why we're becoming so sensitive to it. We have historically donated to different organizations that this year we're changing it up. They're gonna become grants, but for that, you gotta have a business plan. Now, what is your guys' direction for the next year? You said there's like 6 focus points.
That's in that,
That's in our annual.
the annual.
Or the
plan.
5-year.
And this is
That we don't have one of those.
5-year, it is online.
They do call it a business plan.
Okay. So,
And that's required by the state every year. So we file that with the commission and it's on our website. Back to the match items though, is that we've been very consistent with what we've utilized funds for. So what we've done in the previous at least 5 years looks very similar, or not exactly, to what that is.
And while I
Some
understand
of-
that, I guess our comment is we are changing the way we're doing things because of new legal direction. And trying to meet state code today.
So some of it shows as cost, but is not. You know, when we're using the EOC, we're
Right.
giving the value of $175 a time. So the number of meetings that we hold over, we can report that on our match.
It showed as an in-kind cost, I think, more than,
But that's matched by the state.
but that's that's what they're looking. So,
I'll spend some time with this plan and send it to Oki and just see, you know, where the comments are and, you know, what we need to do to just solidify on our end, the relationship as we move
Reach
forward.
out to the state
we're willing to
commission.
work
Yep.
with you on whatever it takes. We're just trying to show you, here's what we've been doing and how we're spending the money. We go through our process, part of it very stringently.
And you guys do great work. Don't get me wrong. We're just trying to, on every level, we're having this conversation with multiple entities. It's not just you. Is we need an MOU in place, we need to know for certain. I don't think we have a lease with you guys, so there is no conversation as far as, we're providing that, but who fixes what, who provides what, all that kind of stuff, I don't even think is in a lease
I
agreement.
think some of this stuff has probably been grandfathered in over the years. And
Right, and put it in clarity so that everybody's on the same page might be a good thing. So we can do that through the MOU too, is, we'll provide this, but
This is impressive, what all you guys do. I never saw this end of the show, ever. And it was like, to see all these different projects.
And maybe that's our fault. We don't get the word out like we should.
Yeah.
I guess so that's one of the things we're willing to, if you want, have either a monthly meeting or whatever schedule would fit to kind of keep you posted as to here's what we got going.
Mhm.
so one of the reasons I know that Commissioner Caldwell has not attended and we kind of backed off a bit is that you guys talk about all the planning and zoning things during your meeting. We can't listen to any of that prior to anything coming in front of us.
Understandable.
So there may be some things that might bias us based on this. And so that's why we're trying to make sure that, we're following proper protocol with what meetings we're attending and what the content of that meeting is.
Like I
So
say,
I
that,
would love to come and listen to some of this stuff. I'm sure that Commissioner Caldwell would too. Maybe we can figure out a way to put whatever would be a conflict of interest for us, in a different area where we're not.
maybe that would, like I say, maybe that would be something we can do as a more of a in-person type of meeting to come in and
Maybe quarterly, just come and tell us what you've got going on or
But it-
something like that, let's communicate at a higher level.
whatever works, I guess, for you. I think we're willing to meet that.
I know that you've done like an annual, you've never sat in one of their annual presentations,
I don't think so.
remember? Okay, yeah. Normally we get an annual presentation of some kind, so, which would be good.
Yeah, but like I said, whatever, I think more than an annual meeting probably would be worthwhile
6
to
months would be
keep,
good at least, yeah.
keep you posted and see what we're stirring up.
Yeah.
And some of the others, the nonprofits that we support, we have a quarterly reporting from them. And if we give them money, they have to show us what they spent the money on in the previous quarter. So, we have very strong requirements and stuff. Yeah, in the past, there was a little bit of the good old boy thing, where there wasn't anything documented. Our legal team is very on task and that don't allow us to do that kind of stuff anymore.
Maybe we could do like a biannual in person and the other 2 quarters, send an email.
Yeah,
Just know our agendas are getting full.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that would be good too.
So with our board meetings, we could, you know, if we did Cinda on first, and then you could join at 11. Or,
I think actually it'd probably work out better if we did the, like you say, a biannual in person and then try to quarterly
Send a-
deals or something like that. I think that way we can kind of maybe keep out some of that stuff. that
Yeah.
may-
Just like your flyer right there. I mean, that's a huge amount of information for me as to what you guys are doing. All
Try to- we
all
try to
I
put
ever
out a-
hear is you guys are,
Quarterly newsletter
no, annual.
or annual, okay, an annual newsletter. Right. Or sometimes we'll put together a flyer like this that we could use in one of the public meetings.
Mhm.
That we can make sure that that
Well,
gets,
that's informative. I mean, it's hands-on, you put it in your hand, you can read it and see the facts. I like that. It works.
And I think that that's kind of, you know, we envision this, you know, what are you doing on behalf of the county? That's when we need to see where those tax dollars go. Cause that's where we're paying you to do something on behalf of the county. And I know the BMPs are a big part of it. You know, we'll comment on the BMPs and stuff, but
Like everything we do is for the county.
what you do is on behalf of the ranchers.
No, so many that aren't associated with a particular landowner. All these stream bank restorations, those are
Well, and that's true.
benefits, those
I
are.
actually wish there was more with the ranchers. Those funds are lacking.
Well, and that's why those statements need to be made on camera. You know, this is what we're doing on behalf of the county. This is why we give county money and county funding. And so that MOU is where we document, you know, you're gonna do so many projects, stream bed or whatever, you know, and we can come up with what those numbers are annually.
And those, of course, are dependent upon getting the grants, so.
Well, maybe we put in there, you write so many grants per year, what's an average grant writing, so that we know that you are gonna be writing some grants annually.
Well, and we did the vault, I mean, Brush Creek is still open and that, we paid for the county vault on that. And Brush Creek, improvements, stream bank improvements, and that was the county, so. And
Those are the important things to document.
that one's not closed yet, so that's, we don't have a final report on that yet, but that's,
that probably gonna be the hardest thing to do is we may not be able to show exactly, you know, how much money was allocated and spent till we get the project done, but at least with a quarterly report or something like that, we can kind of outline, here's the progress or stuff like that.
Those are helpful. Like they're doing this over here, doing that over there, yeah, just things like that. That's, you know, people ask and say, yeah, this is what they're doing.
we are busy and we do a lot of, what's really increasing is outreach projects for schools that they want project work. And those are great, they're very time consuming. So I'm thinking when the Alzar students come in now, they don't want to just work on the Alzar bank, they want to help at the Strand. And so we actually purchased the plants for that, and they planted sedges along that access way. So, but that's happening more and more. Mountain Community School wanted outreach, we did a pollinator project with them.
That's great.
Pollinator seeds.
Love to hear those. Those are the things we should be hearing about. Yeah.
And
Thanks for coming in.
Yep, thank you.
Was this an update or was this a request for funding or what was the meeting supposed to be?
Just an update,
Just-
because the match will
Explanation
in
of what.
July,
we-
we'll have to come in to get that form signed.
Okay.
So we'll have to work on the MOU before that, right? Is that what we have? That's on our.
We'll reach
So
out
we'll
to.
have Come in probably once for the MOU. Check on that, and then for the match report sometime before August 16th.
I will, get legal working on some documents for MOU, but if you can go to some of the other districts and see what they're doing, if they have a template, that would be helpful for us. So,
And one more, back to that IT thing. It was just that I had a crash and I didn't know if it was fatal, and it was, and I'm everything. I wear all the hats, IT, janitor, everything, cook. So, and Dylan has been able to help us in the past, and we are able to claim that as a match. Like if when we got that owl, being able to have the virtual meetings, and he had to come over and help set it up because I couldn't do it, but I'm doing it now. And so I wasn't asking the county to fix anything. I just needed Dylan to look at it and say, yeah, you're toast, or it's fixable. It was a panic because I'm only one in there. So
our IT director was concerned, and he's Dylan's boss, so therefore Jeremy is the one that needs to do that. So when he reached out, he said, I don't want the liability of
there's
messing with a computer that we have.
no liability, and I do have IT for my federal computer, but they can't give me any IT support for our laptop, which we do our QuickBooks on.
Okay.
So, I'm just on my own. It used to be Kay's husband that used to help with that, but yeah. So, and it was.
I don't know how to respond to it because I don't know what the circumstances are gonna be, and so and anytime that we are doing anything, I'm surprised that Dylan came to help, to be honest with you, because the cybersecurity world with the county right now is huge. So I'm assuming you're all on your own and everything else. We'll see what we can do when the moment comes, if something is needed, but hopefully there's some computer people up here too that wouldn't be at the county. Might be able to help if needed.
Yeah, if we needed anything past that, we wouldn't expect the county to do anything. That would be on the district's responsibility and budget. It was just that.
Probably hit Jeremy at a
Ask
time when
someone.
he was slammed and didn't have time to step away to go do anything else, is probably my guess, but.
So, and I know this is the first time we haven't had a ex-Valley Soil and Water board member as a commissioner. So you have legacy.
We might have to put you on, oh, you are on there, wait a minute. Not on their board though.
No, on the board.
It's also
Or
a
have been board
conflict
member
with
sometime.
Boise or Pay It Forest Coalition, so that's why I haven't been able to attend.
Oh, same time. Okay.
We understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's part of the solution. I think if we could reach out to you and explain what we're doing, that's gonna improve the relationship a little bit.
That'd be great. All right, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can take all your time.
We're late today.
Thanks, guys.
We're late today. I am gonna keep your 5-year plan.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you get one of these final reports so you know what they look like?
I've got one.
Okay.
You guys want one of these also? We've got one.
Nope, I have all these. These will be attached to the commissioner minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for
Very,
all
very much.
Your
We-
hard work.
Been interesting.
I bet. Been a lot of stuff
Probably will
going on
continue
out
to
there.
get more interesting.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely, thanks for coming in. And with that, that is our last agenda item. There is no, I'm sorry, what? Oh. We, don't have anybody in the room to come and visit with the commissioners, so we will